Hello and welcome to Bottom Line. Freedom of press is not just important for democracy, it is democracy. A free press is one of the strongest pillars of democracy, as they say. Today, of course, is National Press Day. Over the years, this day has come to be observed or celebrated as a time of introspection for us media persons. However, it would be pertinent to say that these are unprecedented times for the media fraternity, when its very motives are being questioned. Freedom of expression in the true sense should be a guaranteed right for the media, but is it the case in reality? Is the fraternity facing an existential crisis to an extent at a time, with social media to an extent taking the center stage, with perhaps opinions taking the form of news in certain cases? Lastly, are journalists being allowed to speak their mind in the true sense? To discuss this and much more, I am being joined from Shillong by Ms. Patricia Mukim, editor of the Shillong Times. From Imphal, Manipur, Rinku Khumukcham, editor, Imphal Times, joins me. From Kohima, I am being joined by Mr. S. Chishi, President, Nagaland Press Association. President of Tripura Journalists Association, Sajad Ali, joins me from Agartala, and columnist and Professor Nehu, Dr. Prasanjit Biswas, also joins me from Shillong. A very warm welcome to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. If I can go to Ms. Patricia Mukim in Shillong first. Ms. Mukim, you have been a crusader all along, very vocal all along, ma'am. Today, of course, is National Press Day. As I said, a day of introspection for all us journalists. Do you think these are unprecedented times as far as the media fraternity is concerned?
Absolutely. Since 2014, we have been made to watch what we say, what we write, and we've really lost a lot of freedom along the way. But we haven't geared ourselves up to reclaim these rights. This is the most disturbing factor, because, as I said earlier to somebody else, that as a fraternity, we are very fragmented. We don't have a common platform. I don't see a Northeast Journalist Forum. I don't see a national forum that is strong enough to go to court and challenge these archaic laws like defamation, criminal defamation, sedition. And you can't book journalists on such flimsy grounds. But this is happening, and we are being told by these examples that we better be careful about what we write and what we say. And I just want to say this. We are journalists, but we are first of all human beings. We speak on humanitarian causes also. And because of that, we put up Facebook posts, or we tweet, and you just happen to be a journalist. So everything is piled up against you, and you're being questioned as to why you're trying to create communal disharmony.
More so when you are a known journalist.
Yeah. So, I mean, people should see your track record before they make such comments, or before they even file FIRs against you. They should see your track record and what you've stood for. But if that doesn't matter anymore, then what are we here for? And, the observance of National Press Day, to me, has become just another symbolic observation. I am very sort of cynical about these symbolic observances of any day. It's Mahatma Gandhi's birthday or whatever. I think it's not the
has
way
become
we
a
should
ritual
be
of
observing.
sorts. Has become a ritual of sorts. Rinku Khumukcham, editor, Imphal Times. Your first reaction, sir.
Okay, well, observing a National Press Day, we just reminded the people as well as the government that the existence of press freedom, media person, press is very important, and its role is pertinent to the government, to the society. Democracy will certainly exist with the help of this fourth state. So this has been conveyed and once reminded to the government, and there has been a lot of, questions whether the press media person are getting their freedom, right to expression. They are getting it or not. It's a question, debatable one, whether the government is acting, treating the media person, delivering justice to them or not, is really a question of that has been a debate for a long time in the state of Manipur itself. The government often try to suppress the voice of the press. It has happened a long time back also. Since 1969, it has been happening in the country. In Manipur, the first case was the arrest of a journalist called R.K. Sanajawa, who is a pioneer. We used to call him the pioneer of Manipuri investigative journalism. He wrote against late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and the other day he was arrested. That was the first case, I suppose, that arrested, trying to suppress a media person. And the next thing happened after some time is, in 2000, the present Chief Minister of Manipur, that is N. Biren Singh, he was arrested for expressing of his opinion to his newspaper by the then government on citizen charge. And these are something like, that the government tried to suppress the press. And later, when he became the Chief Minister also, the same thing happened. He arrested, there were some counter charges and charges, defamation cases has been put on many of the newspapers out here in Manipur. And even though it follows some procedural law, due process of law, but still then some kind of, the media fraternity is facing some kind of intimidation from the government side. That is why, once more, the importance of observing National Press Day, which means that press has to be let freedom.
Of course, there have been instances. There have been instances across region, across nation. Of course, you have pointed out some of the cases from Manipur. We will take the discussion forward a bit later on how much freedom is enough freedom, or also is it for the press to be more responsible. Of course, that is very much debatable. If I can go to H. Chishi, President, Nagaland Press Association. Mr. Chishi, freedom of media, freedom to speak the truth, freedom to do our job freely. Do you think it's getting increasingly difficult in this changing times, Mr. Chishi?
I think there are some areas where our freedom of speech has been restrained, but otherwise, by and large, in Nagaland, it is not, like that. Especially, there, as I've told you, there are certain areas where our speeches are being, curtailed due to certain, circumstances. But otherwise, by and large, the society is, acceptable. The people knows the importance of the press, the freedom of the press.
We will come to more of that. If I can go to Mr. Sajjad Ali. Mr. Sajjad Ali joining me from Agartala, of course, the President of Tripura Journalists Union. Well, Mr. Ali, Tripura has had its own instances of attack on journalists and various other issues, and these cases have been there for the last 10 to 15 years or even more. So, if you were to be honest, how challenging is the task to be a journalist in Tripura? I'm not just asking about Tripura, but overall Northeast. How difficult or easy it is for a journalist, for a political in a politically volatile state like Tripura? And of course, National Press Day wishes to you, Mr. Ali.
Thank you. First of all, I congratulate all of you in the studio and the desk and who are in the field, working in the field. National Press Day, on occasion of National Press Day. So this year, this day is being observed in the backdrop of COVID-19, and it has come havoc, for the journalists. Journalists are suffering a lot in many ways. Not only in Tripura, not only in Northeast, but you can say across the globe. So, this year we have to adopt a certain situation and cherish our profession in a manner that we can go ahead, we can imbibe our future, and we can stick to our noble profession impartially, and exposing the corruption, exposing the all sort of nuisance, and just focus on our profession in a very honest and in a very impartial manner.
Dr. Prasenjit Biswas, time to introspect, probably yes. There are a lot of pressures, external pressures that we may face today in this profession, but also it's time to introspect, maybe time to look within to your first views.
I don't think media persons and journalists need to at all be afraid of any kind of external pressure. They have this powerful pen, which is mightier than any kind of external pressure. The real issue is bending the laws and rules in a manner that an attack can be conducted on the freedom of expression. Now, the constitutional position in freedom of expression is that there are some reasonable restrictions. But for not applying those reasonable restrictions, no one can be penalized with the help of laws like UAPA sedition. We know that in Imphal, Kishore Chandra Wangkhem is in Imphal jail, and UAPA, NSA, all kinds of acts are applied on him. Similarly, a journalist called Milan Mahanta in Mirja has been beaten up the other day. Every day we get this information about assault on journalists and media persons. So there must be a certain kind of a legal immunity against any such attack, physical, psychological, or direct and indirect pressure by direct and indirect means of allurement or certain other ways in which the voice of journalists can be suppressed because they are revealing the truth. Therefore, truth needs to be protected under a legal immunity that has to be necessarily given to journalists and media, and for which laws need to be enacted, which is not there in our country at this moment. Right.
If I can come back to Ms. Patricia Mukim again, well, you have specifically mentioned, yes, from 2014 things have changed, but also if we talk specifically about the Northeast, probably we also have been facing pressures here. We have a lot of groups. We have something called pressure groups, civil society organizations which are very vocal. It's Northeast is very diverse. We have different ethnic groups, and it's very important also to take care of the sentiments of all. So these are also pressures that have been there all along. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, of course. We have to be, and see, in Meghalaya, we've just only come out of militancy. At that time, during the days of militancy, also we had to watch our backs, because if we write something, then the next day we get a warning call, but then we still pursue what we believe are our journalistic duties, or as a columnist, one pursues that cause, because it's the cause of humanity. But I want to dwell a bit on this Article 19A of the Indian Constitution, which actually gives us, because there's no separate article in the Constitution for media freedom. We all come under the ambit of Article 19A. And Article 19A says that you can have your freedom of speech and expression, but within reasonable restrictions. Now, mostly we in the media, we do remember those reasonable restrictions, which means we cannot defame any person without proper evidence, proper documents. And I'm talking here of people who are in charge, who are custodians of the public purse, people who are in government, politicians, ministers, bureaucrats who handle public money. They must be held to account, because it is said that the media is there to afflict the comforted and to comfort the afflicted. Our role is basically to give voice to the powerless, to the voiceless. This has been at least a cardinal principle for me. Not to just give voice to the powerful, to just follow politicians and just to quote them all the time. We also have to go to the people and see if what is being proposed by governments from time to time is actually reaching the people. When we do that, we face consequences, and it's not a very happy situation. So, generally, overall, there is this kind of gloom and doom for the media. And then you have another section of media people who have been co-opted by the government, who are used by the government, and you know which media channel I'm talking about. So this again creates a very bad precedent for all of us in the media. That means all of us who don't want to be co-opted, who want to walk the straight and narrow, we face challenges, no?
Yeah, but who takes a call? Who is on whose side? I mean, that is a debate that will rage on. Rinku Kumukcham,
No,
Rinku
I
Kumuk,
don't.
yeah.
Excuse me, Nabarun. I don't think you can say that the debate rages on. We know which media is on which side. We are not so dumb, no. So I think that is like defending the indefensible. So let's leave it at that.
Okay, we'll come back to that for sure.
Yeah.
Rinku Kumukcham, well, you have made a mention of certain cases, but can we also not deny that in a state like Manipur, which has also seen its share of insurgency, there are pressure from both sides. There are pressure from both sides when it comes to a working journalist.
Well, to be very frank, in the early 2000s and later the 2000s stage, what actually happened is that people, media fraternity faced strong, dictate from the armed insurgents group. They forced people to media to write down at their whims, and then if the media fraternity rejected, then certainly they attack. And it happened once, when it was in the early 2000s and later, like 2011, 12, 13. There also, that time also, there has been attack to journalists fraternity regarding this armed insurgency group, detecting the media fraternity. And the media fraternity easily don't go in that way that they like. They oppose, we even stop publication for even 2, 3, 4 days. Those are the days. Certainly today it seems that there is, the pressure has been reduced from the other side, and what actually happened is that is a freedom of press that should be exercised. Are we journalists in Manipur really exercising our spirit of journalism or not? Is a question that has to be discussed today when there is no dictate from the UGs. There has been some kind of fear among the journalists out here in Imphal whether to report what or what not, or what to report, because of the fear that they might get. Because for reporting,
especially more so in the remote.
Even, journalists.
Especially more so in the remote hill districts. That is where our journalists are doing an excellent job despite all the pressure, isn't it, Rinku Kumukcham?
No, actually, what actually happened is that earlier, before 2010, let's say before 2010, there has been a lot of pressure from the other side, that is from the armed insurgents group that has been interfering the matter of media houses. So these things actually come down slowly. I don't know how it comes down, but it might be because of the pressure, because of the unity of the journalists of Manipur that has been put them down. And in the beginning of the, after late 2015 era is different. Late 2015 is that, the journalist has been facing a lot of intimidation, trolling goes on in the web, the social media against some news report and a newspaper or news journalists trolling against them. Some people,
all right,
some kind of intimidation
got
going
your
on.
point.
So
got your point. I'll just quickly like to take a reaction.
So these are the things that is going on right now.
Yeah, I'll quickly go back to Patricia Mukim on the same question very quickly. Of course, course, ma'am, even Meghalaya has had its share of insurgency, and of course there are times, especially in the Garo Hills area, where pressure would have been from both sides, and those were
Yes.
really difficult times for the journalist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, in the Northeast, we have very specific, reasons for the press coming under pressure. Because, as you said earlier, there are pressure groups, there are interest groups, there are political pressures. We also have pressure from the MLAs, because they will raise privilege motions against you. Then you're called to question before the assembly. And after that, nobody ever gives you a result of what happened that day, whether you did right or wrong. So there are all kinds of pressures, and thankfully, in Meghalaya today, we don't have the pressure of militant outfits telling us to publish verbatim what they write. And now the High Court has also given the order that we shouldn't be publishing anything from outlawed groups. So I think to that extent we are covered, but I don't know whether how long this is going to last, and whether peace is really permanent or short term.
If I can go back to Sajid Ali in Agartala, Mr. Ali, how important do you think it is for the journalist fraternity to stand together, stand with each other for the right reasons at a time when almost everybody has a thing or two to say about the profession or to question certain motives, or even there are attempts in certain cases to curtail the freedom of expression? How important is it for the journalist fraternity to stand together, and is it practically possible? Is it practically possible in today's changing scenario?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be united. We have to stand for someone who is suffering, who has been targeted by the vested quarter, or who has been bulldozed by the political bosses for reason that he exposes certain quarter through his writing or through his coverage in electronic media. And it is possible that if we just forget our own cause, if we just try to feel for others and work for our fraternity at large, we can of course get rid of all sort of problems, and we can just push the authority, to protect our rights, press freedom, and our
Yeah,
security.
we'll go back to Mr. Chishi, H. Chishi in Kohima, H. Chishi in Kohima. Well, Mr. Chishi, again, we have been talking about freedom of media, freedom of expression. For a state as diverse as Nagaland, where journalists perhaps have to keep a lot of sentiments in mind before going about their task, how challenging do things get?
This is a diverse state with a lot of different aspiration, with the tribal politics involved there. But as I've said, there is not much restriction on freedom of speech. By and large, it's okay. Of course, why I say restriction or maybe curtailment of the freedom of speech means, this is an insurgency infested state. Yeah. So in that aspect, I'm saying. But otherwise, the society is a liberal society. They have understood the freedom of speech. They have understood the liberal media. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, point taken. We'll have to go for a very short break here. Please stay on. We'll discuss the impact of social media on the expression, media freedom, and much more. But after this very, very short break. Welcome back. You're watching Bottom Line. We're discussing media freedom, freedom of expression for the media on National Press Day. If I can go back to Ms. Patricia Mukim, editor, Shillong Times. Again, Ms. Patricia Mukim, though I hate to ask this question, but this is something that we have to discuss. Well, do you think in some way or the other, when we talk about journalist bodies, press associations, somehow, somewhere, if even if it's not very evident, a set of journalists sometimes are divided between the ruling and opposition camps. Do you think that does happen? Is that a reality, be it in Meghalaya, be it in other states? Do you think that is a reality you have to face somehow or the other?
Of course, there is. I mean, see, we all have our personal leanings, but that should not reflect on our journalism. No, we have leanings, we have ideologies, but that should never come in the way of our reportage. Our reportage must be as objective as is possible. And you have to be in the profession for some time to really be able to be objective. But because this profession is also very low paying, there are all kinds of tendencies, all kinds of temptations for people to lean this way or that way. Or, in fact, when I was talking to these new IAS officers, no, the newly recruited batch, in fact, batch after batch, they expressed their lack of confidence in the media. They're saying that, oh, you can always, it's almost as if saying that they can almost buy us off. If they have enough of resources, they can buy us to put the news where they want it to be put. I feel very outraged by these allegations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But maybe, and recently you saw that list of media houses that were receiving money
Of
from
course,
the coal traders, the
of course,
mafia.
there
So
are, yeah.
we have to be mindful of our own behaviors as well. We can't expect justice from everywhere if we are unjust in the way we, the way we behave.
Prasenjit Biswas, Dr. Biswas, do you think that is the existential crisis that the media is possibly facing today? First of all, to stand united and also use its power responsibly.
Actually, media has to, of course, form a certain kind of a consortium and a kind of a body which can protect the rights of all the media persons. Now, it is easier said than done. As you have rightly pointed out, media persons have divisions in terms of their camps, but that should not deter them in coming together. As in when there is a certain kind of an attack on press freedom or media freedom. But we often see that attackers and various agencies, those who try to suppress a particular media house or suppress a certain kind of report, have their way through. I remember in many cases when media persons published very, very probing reports on certain kind of scam, if they are related to financial or political matters, then necessarily there is a backlash. So that is where a legal immunity, a legal shield needs to be created for the media persons. Until and unless we have a legal shield, a set of rules that completely shields a media person from this kind of a backlash, from a kind of a physical attack, or from any kind of a trolling after them, until and unless that point of time, there is always a kind of a danger and a kind of risk. The risk is coming from powerful sections of the society, and therefore it needs to be seen that media as the fourth estate of democracy enjoys a little more freedom than the usual freedom of the individual or any other political body or social organization. So their level of freedom needs to be enhanced by a certain kind of an enactment of law. Unless that happens, media freedom is still in a crisis. And recent INB notification in bringing Facebook and all other kinds of digital platforms under its observation and supervision is a certain kind of interference in the internal functioning of the media. Such interferences are unwarranted in a democracy. Therefore, more the interference, the greater
but I would like
Yeah.
I would like Patricia Mukim to come in here. Don't you think also that is necessary with the number of Facebook media pages, news pages coming up, with a number of portals coming up, a lot of which are outside regulations. It is also spreading alleged fake news to an extent. So don't you think that was a necessary move also by the INB ministry, Patricia Mukim?
Um, I don't know up to what extent you want government curbs on social media. Social media is an outlet for every person who wants to say something. In the past, we didn't have this outlet, and maybe we kept all the rage inside. Now, all the rage is confronted on social media. Sometimes it can lead to communal conflicts, as we have seen in the past. But to then, expect the government to curb liberties there is, I don't know how good that is. Uh, Also, social media has kind of flattened the curve, because at one time, it was only the journalists who ruled the roost, who were the dispenser of news, so to say. Now every person can dispense their own brand of news. Each one creates news, each one creates a video. To that extent, we are more informed. Those of us who live in the cities, we are more informed about what happens in West Khasi Hills, in Ukhrul district of Manipur, which is hardly, you don't hear too much. You now get to hear what happens in Tuensang in Mon district of Nagaland because of social media. Otherwise, those are, areas of darkness. So you don't want to put curbs on social media, but at the same time, there is a certain expectation that social media should be conducted with a certain amount of decency and dignity, but that
Absolutely.
doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
It becomes a platform for people to just rage and defame people they don't like, and it's that way. I don't know how we can really conduct the behaviors of people,
But
or
doc,
whether you need any external agency to do that. I don't think you want to do that.
But again, Dr. Prasenjit Biswas, when you create a platform, be it on social media, where you are reaching out to a large number of people, you also have to go by ethics, isn't it?
Yes, but ethics and law must go together hand in hand. The ethics of leaking out certain information or dishing out certain facts in terms of analysis, in terms of opinion mobilization, etc., have to be given a certain kind of freedom. A certain degree of freedom has to be given a priori before somebody expresses his or her opinion. So that freedom of expression that is enshrined in the fundamental rights of the Constitution needs to be upheld, and it should not be brought under IPC, CRPC. And that is where I would like to say, legally speaking and institutionally speaking, media institutions have to be given a certain kind of an immunity from application of criminal laws, and no freedom of expression, even if it is hate speech, that needs to be criminalized. There should be complete decriminalization of all kinds of freedoms of expression, as it is there in France. We have seen recently what has happened in France. France has steadfastly defended the freedom of expression, which includes the right to offend even the other view. So the right of dissent, the right to offend, and right to express freely. This is how a democracy can thrive and it can strengthen itself. And there should not be any going back from that kind of an absolute right of freedom of expression. Of course, one can define what is hate speech minus hate speech. All kinds of speech, all forms of expression needs to be given an absolute freedom. And that is what needs to be worked out within the four corners of our Constitution in order to develop an immunity, a legal shield for all kinds of freedoms of expression in our
Yes.
country, so that our country can really allow creative expressions more and more
Point
in
taken.
the domain.
Point
and
taken.
can
Patricia
develop
Mukim,
debate.
you are saying something. You are saying something. You want to add to it, Ms. Mukim?
No, I can't hear Prasanjit, so I can't react to what he says. What I'm saying is that as journalists, also, we are first of all human beings. And there are cases we take up, humanitarian cases we take up through social media, because social media is also a space that the high and mighty visit. They see the tweets, they see Facebook posts, and maybe they can change their minds about the way they do things. So I'm a journalist, but I'm first a human being. So I cannot be told that just because I'm a journalist, I only have to stick to the newspaper. I also have a viewpoint.
Absolutely.
And if you don't like what I have to say, please debate it out reasonably, but do not verbally assault people on Facebook and say that this woman should be killed, like somebody from Manipur once said about me, we should kill her and all that. I don't
Shameful.
think the debate should degrade to that level.
Shameful. That was exactly my point. As journalists, we follow, as media houses, as newspapers, as news channels, we are bound to follow certain ethics. When you are running a platform, I'm not talking about as in your individual capacity. When you are running a news platform on social media, you also need to be accountable, because social media does influence public opinion. Of course, the recent case, I really don't want to get into it, but of course, there have been a lot of backlash also to certain, to anyone who has tried to go against the popular opinion. For instance, even in the case in Meghalaya, and you know what I'm talking about, there has been this effort, this intention to change, to target somebody because you do not subscribe to the popular opinion. That is where the threat comes from.
So, yeah, that will always happen. That will always happen, but it depends on you whether you're going to cow down or you're going to stick to your stand. And if you think that you're on the right track, why should you retract what you're saying? Because there will be always all kinds of opinions. And the idea of social media is to debate it out, not to kill each other, not to, harm each other.
Absolutely. Rinku Kumukcham, how important in a state like Manipur, where you have mentioned about how there is to be threat from UG groups a decade ago, or a few years ago, in a state like Manipur, how important is it for the journalist fraternity to stand together, despite possible differences, to stand together on every issue with each other, especially in a state like Manipur?
Journalism exists in Manipur and survived in Manipur because of the unity we have. We have been divided for one time, some 10 to 20 years back, when we were very young. There were no unity at all. There were division among the journalist community. At that time, there were many attacks to the journalists. Even the politicians used them as as a tool to tame the people. But these days, when journalists are together, when it comes under one roof, when people are all the journalist fraternity are standing together as one, then it is hard for any UGs or even the government to make any make any false charge against all this community. If it is the personal matter and the due process of law they're being taken up because of defamation or derogatory comment or so and so, it is not the case. But intimidation and all, it didn't happen nowadays because of the unity. The media fraternity is unity. When it comes, we all stand together. When any attack come for example, just a couple of years back, the government of Manipur, the superintendent of police had issued a notification stating all media houses to control publication of news relating to UGs. These are all matters we have already been told. We know how to publish, what not to publish. This has been already discussed among our groups, our editors, senior editors, and then senior journalists. We have been discussing all these issues the days, time after time, and we have been adjusting with the environment, with the society, with the situation from time to time. And when there was an influence from the police government side, like dictating, issuing a notification not to publish material like anything related to the UGs, then we definitely come together and stand together and say that no, you cannot interfere, infringe to our right of reporting. We have every right to report, and what not to report we know. And if there is any wrong in the reporting, then you can go to the court and you can file case. That has to be done under due process of law. In that case, there is another, it is the
Point
unity
taken.
that make us stronger, make media houses that is why I feel it necessary for even for the Northeast people also. For all the Northeast people also, we have, Manipur is only just have 30 lakhs people and we don't have much population, much audience. So we need to be together. We need to stand together. We need to fight together. Until
More
unless
so
we
than ever
fight
before.
together, we
More
stand
so than ever
together.
before.
The
Yes.
government, either it may be the government or we will be attacked. We will be the victim. That's what
If I can go to Sajid Ali, Mr. Sajid Ali, this is a very challenging profession, especially we may be sitting in the state capitals, but think of those journalists, be it photojournalists, video journalists, stringers, reporters in the remotest corners of the state, be it Tripura, another border state, who slog day and night to get us reports from the remotest corners. They don't care about the remuneration. Only thing they care about is their passion for journalism. Don't you think it's time also as a fraternity to unite and come to the aid of each other financially too? That a platform needs to be created, as Patricia Mukim a short while back pointed out, of course, about the low remuneration in the profession. So is it not time also for the journalist fraternity to think of coming together? As you also said, these are COVID times, journalists had faced tough situation. So unity a must, not only for the freedom of expression, but also to come to the financial aid of each other, maybe to create a platform. Has that been happening?
Yeah, you have specifically mentioned about Tripura. So, situation in Tripura may not be different from other parts of Northeast India, and I can tell you that I'm also an activist. I'm president of State Journalist Union. So we are trying to help out our fellow brothers who are working from remotest parts, from rural areas. I mean, they are the one who are suffering a lot because they are not financially sound, and also they are facing threats, persecution from the certain quarters for their coverage against them. So it has been a situation which is there. For years. I mean, we cannot just control the situation, this sort of nuisance in just a day or a month. But there should be a consolidated effort, and there should be a unity. That is most important. Unless we are united, we will not get anything. If we are just divided in many groups, in many ways, then the vested quarter take advantage of our problem, and they try to, as I said earlier, bulldozers. They try to impose their dictate. They try to rule over us. These sort of things happen. And as far as this financial support is concerned, yes, of course, my union has a welfare fund to support the journalists, especially who are in need for medical purposes. And we have also ensured that government creates a welfare fund that is there, that is also functioning. But the situation, press rights violation is going on in some way or the other. In some areas, we are raising our voice, we are protesting, and we are trying to reach out those journalists to help them out. Also to provide legal support to them.
Absolutely.
So we are trying a bit, but
absolutely.
Yeah,
Mr.
of course,
Chishi,
there are rights
if I can go to Mr.
in
Chishi in Kohima. Mr. Chishi, this is a critical juncture for Nagaland and Nagas as a whole. The peace talks are at a final stage. How important a role do you think the media can play in the current scenario?
See, from the beginning, media has been playing very crucial and positive role in this Naga peace process. We have been meeting cross-section of people. We have been meeting all the, militant groups. Well, we have been taking up the jobs, something like, facilitator also, and we could manage that in some aspect, I think that is the positive aspect of our Nagaland media here.
So Mr. Chishi, do you think, since a lot of groups are still communicating through the media, that puts that much more responsibility on the media at this juncture?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Media should play a positive role at this juncture, and then we know our responsibility, where to strike, what role we should play, and then we are doing that. And I'm very much thankful to the Nagaland media for being part of the solution and not part of the problem anymore.
Just going back to Mr. Sajjad Ali once again, Mr. Sajjad Ali, just being frank, in a state like Tripura, which continues to be very politically volatile for years now, do you think that makes the job of a journalist really difficult, a bit more difficult than, say, some of the other neighboring states?
It has been difficult. First of all, though insurgency is on the wane now, but I mean, journalists were subjected to various attacks during the insurgency period. I can say up to 2004, 2005. And after that, there is another sort of situation that political leaders, they try to harm in different way and means. And also this is a border state. In a sense, 3/4 of the state is has a international border with Bangladesh, and journalists are also subject to intimidation and attacks from the smugglers or those who are involved in illegal activities in bordering areas. So journalists are subject to discrimination, intimidation, attacks for a long time in the state. But unless we are united and we just try to get rid of our selfishness, just overcome our personal allegiance, we can do better for them, and we can work together, we can raise voice together, and we can support each other, and that way the situation can be better.
Ms. Patricia Mukim, do you think unity among the journalist fraternity in a particular state is the key to ensure that media remains untouched, be it from the alleged government side or from the pressure groups, the civil society bodies or any UGs? Unity is the key. People have to stand with each other. Journalists at least have to stand with each other, come what may. That is the beginning. That is the least that we can do for ourselves.
Yeah, there is, there's no controversy about that. We have to be together, we have to stand together if our objectives are the same. But I don't know if all journalists have the same objectives, the same, as they call in Hindi, maqsad. But I must congratulate the journalist fraternity of Tripura for standing up to the Chief Minister. They've been really tough and given him some tough times. I wish that all of us could stand up together like that, because some of the politicians in our country do not know how to behave with the media. They think we take privileges that we should not, but actually we know how much of privilege we can take, and that privilege means that we have to get the news out, come what may, and we have to get these people to speak up. If there are allegations, we have to go after them and unearth these allegations, unearth these. For instance, now in Meghalaya, there's so much being spoken about the illegal extraction and transportation of coal. So we have to be digging in our heels to bring this out into the public domain. We cannot, just be complacent and say, oh yes, everybody is doing their duty, we are all doing our best. And no, there are very, very difficult, it's a difficult road ahead. And it's never easy for a journalist. It's never easy.
Absolutely, of course. We do remember just over 3 to 4 years back, even journalists in Meghalaya did stand up to the government at that stage. There was a boycott of the Chief Minister's press conferences. That was one instance where they stood together. Hope that continues, that kind of attitude continues in future too. We are running out of time. Dr. Prasenjit Biswas, last words from you. Okay, we have lost the line with Dr. Biswas. Sajid Ali, last question to you. Any message you have for the state government, any message for the Tripura government, or for that matter, the opposition on this day? Sajid Ali.
Yeah, message would be that the party is in main opposition now. They were in power for 35 years, but lots of incidents, lots of attacks also took place during their regime. So I mean, now another party or coalition is in power. Incidents are taking place. So message would be that just respect the freedom of journalists, respect the media, respect the our interest. Our self-respect, and just don't try to dictate the journalist or the media what to do or what not to do, what to write or what not to write.
Absolutely.
Just leave us alone. Let us work in our way, and the slogan should be live
Live and let
live.
live. Absolutely. Dr. Biswas, last words from you, parting words from you. We are almost out of time.
Yes, the state has to protect the media persons and their freedom of expression. In order to protect that, they must have an institutional arrangement, not just a body or a board, but an empowered body that will take care of the rights of the media persons. So there could be a commission ensuring rights of media persons, a media right commission, which will negotiate any issue that arises from the freedom of expression of the media persons, and it will protect the media people from any kind of assault, from any kind of external attack on their freedom of expression and freedom of conscience. So we should create that institutional arrangement in order to protect media and retain it as the fourth estate of our democracy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Biswas. I'm sorry, we are completely out of time. Thank you so much, Rinku Kumukcham, for joining us from Imphal, Mr. H.C. Shi for joining us from Kohima. Also, a lot of thanks to Ms. Patricia Mukhim, editor, long time, Sajid Ali, President, Tripura Journalists Union, and Dr. Biswas. Live and let live, as Sajid Ali rightly pointed out. It's also time for the media fraternity to stand united for truth. That should be the norm of the day. On that note, it's a wrap of Bottom Line.